All right, this week on Unlocked, we are going to be discussing what is an ever-evolving trend, and obviously it's becoming a trend because of how well it's working, and that is water holes, and basically they're almost like to the point where they're being placed to kill deer. Yeah. They're not for any other purpose other than to get more deer in range of your setup.
I'd stack it right up there with a scrape tree.
Right.
It's one of the same in the same category.
We're talking about something that's been overlooked for years, and it seems to be, like you said, this growing trend where guys are like, man, I wish I had known this 15 years ago.
Sure.
And Dustin, who's successful in the hunt we're talking about and kind of correlating water holes with, that's his exact words to me, where I wish I knew about this 15 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really important is it's an absolute hunting strategy. When we think of like the three necessities, when, from a habitat manager's standpoint, we put that hat on, it's food, cover, water. When we're talking about the placement of water holes, this is not because it may not be found across the landscape or that deer aren't consuming water through the vegetation that they eat. It's not like this is generally lacking on a given property. This is placing it in a very particular location to create more consistency, more usability, present shot opportunities in front of a place that you've already identified as I can kill deer here. Give them another resource and put it exactly where they're walking, in front of their nose, and 9 times out of 10, they come to it, they hit it, that slows them down, get shot opportunities, and it's incredible.
You mentioned research, because this is something that with our consulting business, almost everything we recommend, we can back with research and say, the reason we do this is not only for hunting success and our own success in the field, but it's also backed up with research. And this is one of those aspects where there is no research to prove our point, because the research will say they get most of the water they need from the plants they eat. So you're like, well, I don't need to add water holes. And there's a creek running through the property, or there's ponds. But in this case...
And they're not wrong.
No.
From a standpoint of necessity.
Yeah,
but
this is a hunting strategy and supplementing an already good food plot location. And to me, the analogy I always use is, there's a whole aisle in the grocery store devoted to candy, and I don't go into it because I don't need a Snickers bar or anything, but when I'm checking out, I'll grab it anyway.
It's convenient.
Because it's convenient.
That's the word I was waiting for you to finish, which is a water hole reminds me of a Quick Trip or a Casey's store, right? It's always
on the way.
It's on the way
Yep.
to wherever most people are going to A to B. This is exactly what that is. You've already created all the food, the setup. Now you're making it very convenient for them to eat, check out the doge, hit the scrape, whatever your choice is of how you're going to lay out your food plot. But in adding that water hole, one, it does two things: convenience, but it also slows them down.
Exactly.
It's like a scrape tree, and if you put it at 18 to 25 yards away, based on wind direction and knowing the traffic, because obviously you want them to come in and leave a broadside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you want to make sure you put it in that strategic location so they don't come in head in and then ass away, because you'll never get a chance to shoot them. So the way Dustin had it, he come in and he was actually just a broadside or just a hair quartering too, if I remember right. But it was strategically thought for the convenience. That is the part that is more important than the water source.
Yeah.
Because they're getting the water elsewhere. We're making it convenient for them to have it, but they may really not need it.
And they could be, but once we establish it, it could be that is now their primary water source.
It could be.
Because they're already coming to the food plot.
Could be.
Yes.
This is where we're going to get the drink.
But when you look at the science of it all, they probably don't need the water because the property has it other places.
Yeah.
And I think what's really interesting now is I think initially the school of thought was we hunt water when it's warm out.
Yeah.
When it's dry.
It's hot or it's dry. We're going to hunt the water. The deer are going to water. Now we're basically finding out that not only is it great in the early season when it's warm, but when those deer are expending a ton of energy during the rut, it's also great.
Body temps are up.
Yeah, and then, which you guys have taught us a lot about, which is the late season, when everything else is frozen.
Yeah.
Can you create a water source that's open?
Yeah.
So it's really a viable option for them.
Yeah.
All throughout the season.
And I would almost, in my assumption and my experience, I would almost argue that the late season open water is more attractive than early season in the heat, which is just like, I wouldn't have thought I'd said that 3 years ago.
Because generally you've got that green growing vegetation still, where they're getting so much water
Everything's
consumption
dry
out of it. But then in late season, everything's senesced. They might be having acorns or there might be corn or standing beans. They don't have that green vegetation, and so that open water source they pound.
Well, in the landscape, come fall, come winter, the moisture is gone.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
or the streams or the ponds are frozen, and then you look at all what they're eating. It doesn't have the moisture because it's dried up, and so it becomes more important late season to Casey and yours point.
And another thing to point out with the creeks and why we believe that they don't use the creeks as much as they use these water holes is due to the fact of steep banks, very, very steep banks, constant noise if the water's rolling, and then the same thing with the wind. It's hard for them to smell because the thermals are just pulling the scent right down. So when we're talking about water holes, I want to make sure we define it for the audience that we're talking about a small hole of water that may be 20 foot across. It may be 2 to 3 foot deep. Preferably, they never go dry.
Small bedroom size.
Yep, and they are very gradual banked where they're not steep at all.
Well, I want to jump in this. I've done a deep dive in this since last fall.
Yeah.
You want the slow, gradual spot of the water hole to be where you want them to enter and exit. You want sharp, steep edges where you don't want them to come. So you set them up how you want them to come. So you want that slow, gradual so that they constantly come to that, which is going to be quartering way or broadside.
Yep.
The offside and the near side, you want a 90-degree angle. Because then they won't go in there.
Yep.
They're going to come around and come around.
But when you're building a pond, that's probably going to be, a water hole, that's probably going to naturally happen in the fact that
creating a little bit of a dam.
You're going to have to build a dam somewhere, so you're going to get
Yeah.
that. But I've seen a lot of water holes built where they go in with an excavator and they dig it out.
They create a little hole.
That's too steep. Like they don't
I see
use
what you're
it.
saying. I see what you're saying.
And another little side note, if they're not holding water, there's some products that you can use to try to seal them up, and one that we use is adequately named called Damn It, and we have no affiliation. I think they're made in Australia, but it's a polymer that seals up the pond. And so if your water hole's not holding a lot, you can put that in there and seal it right up. And very inexpensive option, and it's the great trail camera locations. That just overall having a mock scrape and a water hole all within bow range. Oh, and by the way, cut all the limbs that are out of range so they're not scraping on the other end of the food plot. Now you've got communication hub within bow range.
I think probably the least expensive option that I've done the research on is a company called Deer Ponds.
Yeah.
And those can be shipped on a semi. You can buy one or you can buy 10, whatever your choice is. They have several different sizes. But those are probably the most inexpensive and most effective long term because they're made out of fiberglass, I believe. Yeah. And so once you dig a hole, you put them in, you're done.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing is there's a lot of different products or tanks or this and that you can use. What I would recommend is whatever you do is you either slope it or you put it in a place where it can naturally recharge.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to keep coming back in there and add another chore to the whole deal and put more pressure into that food plot. When it rains, it will recharge, it will refill, and you don't have to necessarily do anything unless it is a very, very dry scenario.
Yeah.
Right.
But the purpose is to do it once, do it right, and stay the heck out.
Right.
Yeah. Should never have to do anything again unless it's spray out cattails that have starting to try to form or willows are starting to grow in the bank. Like that's the only thing you should really do. And I mean, as far as your return on your investment, it's through the roof on a water hole.
I do want to, before we close this out, I want to talk about one thing, and you turned me on to this, which was a solar panel bubbler.
Yeah, an aerator.
Yeah, can you walk us through that? Because late season, that's going to be a key to keeping this water open.
For sure, that's a great point. The concept is that we talked about late season attraction. If it freezes solid, they're going to lick the ice, maybe try to break through it. But if it's it's southern Iowa and it's been single digits for a week, it's frozen solid for several inches. And these aerators are solar powered, or you can get battery and solar powered to where there's a constant bubble action to keep it from freezing
Water's
over.
moving.
Right.
And so we're testing out a couple products, but one of them is it only bubbles when the sun's shining on the solar panel. So ultimately you only have open water from sometime mid-morning to a little bit right after dark. So it's pretty well opening the gates for them to drink during legal shooting hours, and then it freezes up. But in areas of lower temperatures, I assume you're going to have to use a battery just to keep it
Keep it running
keep
24/7.
it running 24/7
Yep.
just so it stays open. But
Yeah.
I would be hard pressed to find something more attractive for late season than standing grain and open water.
Sure.
What is that company called? Do you remember, Adam?
I'm using one from Missouri Sun and Solar right there close to me, where it's just they put this kit together, and a lot of people are using them for like koi ponds.
Oh, sure.
And so they're made for these little bitty holes of
Yeah.
water, and
Were they like $800,000?
yeah, anywhere from there's one that's really small, so if you're down south, it'd be adequate. That's like $450,
Okay.
all the way up to about $1,200 for the battery option.
Gotcha.
I mean, you're not putting them in every water hole. It's preferably the ones where you're thinking about late season hunting.
Yeah.
Where everything is already set up. The south slope bedding, the standing grain, like that's where you put in your investment into, right?
Yeah, and you obviously can move around from year to year. So if you find a plot that's got the best late season, you've got a water hole, move it in there. I'm not kidding you. I feel like water holes we're gonna see people really transition into creating more and more water holes because just because we're starting to see more and more success, just like Dustin had on his hunt.